Imagine walking through a land covered in mist, where every shrine, every mountain, and every whisper of the wind feels heavy with history. Ghost of Yotei pulls you right into the heart of feudal Japan, where legends and reality collide in a story about honor, vengeance, and survival. After spending 80 hours in the game and reaching 100%, I will share my experience with its story, gameplay, and design. What worked, what didn't, and the little quirks that stood along the way. So ultimately, I can help you decide if this game is for you. Set 300 years after the critically acclaimed Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei is a standalone experience set in 1600s rural Japan, in the land of Ezo, known as Hokkaido in present times. Just like Tsushima Island in the previous title, the land is filled with prehistoric folklore and traditions and has yet to see colonization from the mainland. The Great Battle of Sekigahara has just ended when the events of Ghost of Yotei were introduced, so expect an almost untouched land situated in north of Japan, where the local clans try to protect the land from the shogun's control from the mainland. The story follows a hunted and lone mercenary named Atsu, an individual who took the persona of the Onryo, a spirit of vengeance in Japanese folklore. The clan Yotei 6, one of the local superpowers in the land of Ezo, had a dark past with Atsu's family. Thirsty for revenge, Atsu travels through the beautiful, rugged landscapes of northern Japan, hunting the core members of the said Yotei 6 to bring peace to her family. During Atsu's journey in the land of Ezo, she will encounter lots of NPCs that will help her achieve her goals. And to be honest, no one really stuck with me aside from the main supporting ones. Atsu, being the main character of the story, is relatable on many occasions, and I only care about her during the course of my journey. I find the other NPCs forgettable aside from a few of them. Like for example, the wolf, who is one of the main supporting characters in the game that I love so much, who joins Atsu's hunt for the Yotei 6. Of course, the wolf is not just another NPC, but an individual who will constantly accompany Atsu in her battles. I felt that a majority of the NPCs lack the interactions for me to know them even more, so most of the time, they are just vendors or merchants where I just need to get my upgrades or buy the stuff that I need. The story is intact if you decide to focus on the main quest and not to explore the world on the side. It can be a tremendous slog, of course, if you decide to explore the land of Ezo while completing side quests and activities and following the main storyline. The main quest pacing alone is decently well designed, with some minor breaks in between but not too stretched. Cinematic storytelling is the core format of the game, so expect your short to long cutscenes of epic standoff, castle siege, small to wide scale battles, and more. And most of the time, these cutscenes sets the tone of these events pretty well thanks to the well voice acting, especially from the key characters in the game. On the other hand, missing parts of the stories are being filled in from the events in the memory feature. This is where Atsu can relive her past and engage with some of the important characters in her life, giving depth to some of the important NPCs. Since this is one of the most anticipated samurai games after Tsushima, you all know I am eager to dive into this kind of material. Many of you know how particular I am in a game story, especially if it's the core focus of the game. But as much as I want the story to be so epic because of its setting, I find the story just right and straightforward. Don't get me wrong though, the story has plenty of highs and epic moments, and it's not a flop in any sense. Ghost of Yotei is about family, culture, and vengeance. The overall story is not great but it's not bad either, and in fact, it's good and decent. The core story successfully sets the world of Ghost of Yotei, which is already enough for many players out there. When it comes to overall presentation, this is where Ghost of Yotei shines and flexes its identity of being stunningly gorgeous, especially when it comes to the overall level design. I have no words to describe how vast the majority of the landscape in the land of Ezo perfectly encapsulates nature compared to other AAA titles. You can totally see Sucker Punch efforts that were poured into each of the locations in Ezo. I lost count of how many times I just wanted to stare and gloat over these landscapes, just like in the first one. Whether it's night or daytime, the lighting applied to these landscapes was so well done that most of the time they felt and looked real. Given that I'm so particular about level design, my day-to-day exploration were simply a great experience from start to finish. Each of the key location or map sections has its own identity, and no biome or part of the map feels reused or rehashed for the sake of size. There is no doubt that Sucker Punch nailed the level design, but when it comes to character models, I'm having mixed feelings about it. The graphics engine's age starts to show, especially when it comes to NPCs and vendors. Most of the NPCs in this game were poorly textured and, not to mention, look lifeless most of the time. Of course, when I started this game, I already had the expectations that most of the NPC models would not look that great since this is an open world game, and we tend to see this in other open world titles as well. But I was not expecting that it would be this bad in Ghost of Yotei. Most of these NPCs had your usual motion capture movements, which most of the time remind me of old games, and I can't help but to feel that I am playing a 2015 to 20-ish game when engaged with side activities involving NPCs, especially when doing it for hours due to the sheer size of activities that you can do in this game. It's not that I only favor and only care about good graphics. I pretty much enjoy indie games and love 2D pixel games. It's just that I expected more from a title like this. The good thing is, Atsu's character model is well detailed, at least since I'm with her in the entirety of the game, even when out of cutscenes. But when cutscenes play, more details start to show up and Atsu's model looks great and pleasing to look at. The armor sets and weapons designs in this game are phenomenal. I wish I could show it to you, but once you finally see her armor sets, you can clearly see that Sucker Punch paid great attention to these designs. So when Atsu gets the chance to wear the good stuff in the game, she really shines whenever she goes. The overall user interface will get a praise for its clean and simple design. Sucker Punch already nailed the UI in the first title, so expect to have the same feel here when interacting with character menus. Its black and white paintbrush theme is so pleasing to the eye that most of the time I can help but to appreciate it. Having no annoying markers or overwhelming lists on my screen when trying to explore the world is a huge plus, allowing me to enjoy and focus on the landscapes. But what is the Ghost series without its great soundtracks and sound design? If you enjoy the soundtracks or the overall sound design in the first title, expect to see the same quality in Ghost of Yotei. The overall sound design of Yotei sets the tone very well in every scene, while adding phenomenal sound effects such as nature ambient sounds, weather effects, shamisen tunes, and great voice audio. Voice acting is well done in both English and Japanese, which of course I tried both. If you want the maximum immersion possible, nothing beats the Japanese language of course, while the English voice acting has its highs as well. Sucker Punch made sure that their English voice actors and actresses would pay a great deal of attention to record audio lines with a Japanese English accent, which further adds to the immersion. What I want to highlight is the combat's overall sound design, because without it, Yotei's combat will simply not be this satisfying. The sound impacts of attacks, tearing flesh, gushing of blood, gunshots, weapon clashes, and animations are near perfect, allowing the user to feel the intensity of combat to the highest level possible. Ghost of Yotei may be mixed when it comes to its overall graphic fidelity, but the sound and level designs outweigh the negatives, giving a great satisfaction when it comes to its overall presentation. The core gameplay of Ghost of Yotei is no doubt its greatest feat, ranging from good exploration mechanics, character customization, and progression to flashy and addictive combat. Right off the bat, the main question that you have in mind is how huge the overall map is. Without showing you the whole map, I felt that the overall map size is mostly the same as Tsushima, and if not, it's 10 to 20% bigger. So expect that you will be engaging in a lot of activities, as the map is thankfully not empty regardless of its size. The game opens up after 20 to 30 minutes, where you will have the freedom to explore the first major area of the game. You will be hunting points of interest that will increase your character stats. It is a huge plus that there were no excessive markers or checklists outside of the map menu, even though I do have bajillions of activities to complete. Tracking activities on the other hand was streamlined and easy to navigate in your map menu, just in case you are lost or want to track your progress. The main navigation of the land ranges from clearing environmental obstacles via wall climbing, grappling, and ropes parkouring. But of course, you will be spending most of your time horseback riding. Players will be exploring vast fields, mountain ranges, towns, shrines, castles, and ominous caves. And exploration heavily rewards curiosity here, as each corner of the map often gives you something for your efforts to explore. It can be another point of interest lying in the corner, or a side quest that rewards you with an exclusive charm or currency. Exploration in general can be a mixed bag for many players. While I mostly enjoyed hunting shrines, altars, hot springs, bamboo shrines, and more, I can totally see that it can get old pretty quickly for some players. Your character's stats are directly tied to unlocking the mentioned points of interest, so you will be hunting them in a constant loop every time you unlock a new area. Like for example, unlocking hot springs will increase my max HP. Bamboo strikes on the other hand increases the number of my spirit charges, while altars gives me skill points to advance my skill tree. During my first 40 hours of the game, I was so addicted and caught up in the said constant loop, finding and unlocking as many points of interest as I could. But when the end game comes, that's where things starts to get old. So I decided to stop for a while and focus on the main scenario. One of the main reasons why I felt burned out in unlocking points of interest at endgame is the sheer repetitiveness of each activity. For instance, unlocking Wolf's Den will always require you to do a follow-up sequence with a wolf NPC to a certain location. Well, you will free captured wolves after fighting the bad guys who control the spot, and this lasts about 7 to 10 minutes. Another example is climbing shrines, and normally, shrines can give you major charms that you want to get your hands on since they greatly affect character builds. Most of the time, you will be climbing great heights by following straightforward ledges, platforms, and even doing fun parkour and grappling maneuvers to overcome minor obstacles when doing shrine activities. Each climb usually lasts around 10 to 15 minutes, depending on whether there's a quest involved. But the main drawback here is that I felt that I was just following a straight line most of the time with little to no challenge. So I tend to be bored and switch to autopilot mode since there's really no danger involved once I get used to the controls. So imagine doing these activities multiple times in a single area. Now I'm not saying that being able to do great parkours is a bad thing. In fact, I enjoy doing complicated parkours when in combat. It's just that I felt that it was overused in exploration, especially when unlocking shrines. Other than that, I enjoyed exploring the map from start to finish as it can be a relaxing therapy in my case thanks to the mentioned great level design. Story progression, on the other hand, will give players the freedom of how they want to progress in the main storyline. In the early to mid game, you do have an option to take different major map sections with no specific order. So your main and side weapon upgrades can differ greatly from those of other players. This is a huge plus as first playthroughs can heavily vary from person to person, but when endgame comes, this is where the progression will close in on a straightforward path until the main storyline is completed. Story progression will lead you from place to place, looking for clues or track your targets. You will be hunting certain individuals by gathering information from towns, camps, and more. And not for long, you will recognize a pattern here. Once you've unlocked a new area, you will look for leads to advance the main story while hunting for various points of interest in that area for character stats and ability upgrades along the way, until you complete the main objective in that area and move on to the next, or take side quests to earn more rewards like armor and cosmetics. A lot of the NPC side quests are your usual fetch quests, kill quests, or even finding certain individuals. Even though the activities are overwhelming at first, I find the number of quests just right in each area. But when doing these NPC quests, the follow me design gets used so badly that it tends to get really old fast, and you will notice this easily. Character customization is one of the features that I enjoy in Ghost of Yotei. However, in mid to end game, you will start to see how limited your options are, so it can be a mixed bag for many players. Players will be gathering materials and currency in the field when defeating enemies and use them for weapon and armor upgrades later on. Each of the upgrades is pretty straightforward, especially for weapons. Upgrading weapons just increases their overall damage and nothing more, and I find the lack of creativity in this aspect alone. Especially we already have a lot of games that offer build diversity and deep weapon customization. Since we do not have actual character stats to customize and weapons do not have special effects, character builds will heavily rely on the armor set, which provides special set effects. And then you can further improve your builds with charms. There are a lot of charms in this game and most of them are build defining, so you will want to hunt all of them, as many as possible, but of course there are also not so good ones as well. But aside from armor set and charms, these are just your character build determining factors. There is no traditional leveling progression here, and you already know that your character stat upgrades are directly tied to points of interest. Even though there is no traditional leveling progression, I didn't feel that I was gimped or handicapped throughout the game. The amount of hot springs, altar of reflection, and bamboo strikes is just right in every main section of the map, so you can easily make your character stronger by just hunting these points of interest. Despite the highs and lows that we just talked about so far, Ghost of Yotei's combat is simply the strongest feat of the game, where it truly shines the most. And I am telling you, the combat alone makes me want to jump right in even after spending 80 hours in the game and getting everything that it offers. If you played Tsushima, you are expecting the same combat design here, where your main objective is to fill the enemy's stagger meter and break their stance with heavy attacks and massacre them with light attacks when their guard is wide open. This may look pretty basic at first glance, but the main difference now is that instead of Jin's katana and bows, Asuka can wield different weapon types, which range from yari or spear, dual katana, odachi, kusarigama, and of course, her main weapon, the single katana. Each of these weapon types offer unique advantages over enemies. Like for example, the katana can easily stagger enemies also wielding a katana, while the dual katana can delete spear users in a flash, or the kusarigama can easily break enemy shields, while also retaining the ability to master short and long bows to take out targets from a great distance. So players will be juggling from different weapon types in the middle of combat, which makes it dynamic and engaging. Countering and dodging different kinds of attacks are still a thing here in Ghost of Yotei. For example, dodging red type attacks as they are unblockable, while parrying blue type attacks in quick succession, and yellow attacks can be countered with focus attacks. So right off the bat, you will have an idea how fights will be satisfying and thrilling. Weapon switching gives combat depth by letting me analyze enemy weaknesses. Weapon switching is snappy and buttery smooth, so dishing out combos after transitioning from a different weapon type would not be a problem. On top of your different weapon types, you will still have access to a wide array of sub-weapons that offer different advantages in combat. Like for example, the Scorch Bomb, which of course takes out group of enemies, or the kunai that can easily be thrown off and stagger and damage enemies. These are just few examples of sub-weapons or your quick-fire weapons, and a lot is in store for you, so be on the lookout for them. Given that the fight is so dynamic, I cannot stress how well the choreographed movesets are when it comes to attack and skill animations. This is where the game flexes and sets it apart from other action games. They already nailed this in Tsushima and even made it better in Yotei. Atsu's movesets and combat performances are so satisfying that they made me feel that I'm controlling a live human being in the field. Battle poses, parries, and combat finishers, paired with great voice acting and sound design, and responsive and snappy controls, take the whole combat experience to the next level. I mostly play like a samurai, so I tend to just storm in and combat more than 20 enemy soldiers at a time, and I'm telling you, nothing is even more rewarding than beating them all, at least in my experience. However, you do have an option to master stealth as well, and it can be equally rewarding compared to the straightforward fights. Chain assassination felt really great and made me feel that I am a master assassin. Although I didn't feel the need to use stealth approaches since I prefer the samurai way of doing things, I can clearly see players who will prefer the other way around, and stealth in this game is equally engaging and fun to play with. While the general AI for enemies is decent when it comes to general combat, I can't help but to be distracted by enemies being dumb, not getting alarmed when finding their colleagues dead. This mostly applies to stealth approaches, breaking the immersion at least from my end. There was one time I alerted the whole camp, but after a while, they just stopped searching the area like nothing happened. Sucker Punch continues to flex their combat design when Atsu is up against another bounty hunter or when fighting in a boss battle. As expected, this is where the meat of the game comes in, where the combat also shines. Bosses and elite enemies in this game tend to use different weapon types, and most of them perform complicated attack combinations. Encountering and parrying them makes it even more rewarding, so oftentimes I tend to look forward to these kind of fights. The overall difficulty is easy to fare in most cases, and I'm speaking after playing under a medium difficulty or the intended difficulty level of this game. Enemies can still significantly damage you or sometimes one-shots you in certain fights. And this is just by playing in medium or normal difficulty, so don't expect that you will streamline every enemy without mastering their movesets, especially bosses. And of course, the little difficulty is a whole different story, and I know a lot of you enjoy this mode, so if you're looking for a challenge, you are always welcome to try the hardest mode in the game. At least on a regular PS5, I am locked out at 60 FPS when in performance mode, and there is no such thing as 120 FPS mode in here, which is such a downer. I think 120 FPS for this game is achievable, especially since a title such as Death Stranding 2 can easily be played in 120 FPS. We all know how demanding it is, graphically speaking. Cutscenes are also locked in 30 FPS, but I kinda understand what Sucker Punch is going for here, which is the cinematic storytelling vibes. You only have quality and ray tracing for other options, and I think most of you will play in performance mode anyway. With that having said, expect that the game can maintain a stable 60 FPS smoothly even on a regular PS5. Performance was stable on my end from start to finish, but of course I encountered stutters occasionally, which rarely happens in the entire game. Although the performance is stable, I've encountered a handful of bugs during my experience. The Zenny Hajiki minigame tends to have a missing coins, making it unplayable, which sucks because this is your fastest money-making feature in the game. Some of the NPCs tends to get lost as well while doing main or side quests because they are getting stuck on something, forcing me to restart at the last save point. The worst bug that I have encountered so far is that headless enemies tends to be immortal after being assassinated. And to be fair, this only happens once in my playthrough, but it really does break the immersion. I am very sure that the game will be receiving further updates to lessen these kinds of instances, judging from the trend nowadays. You don't need to worry about these bugs, and as mentioned, these instances only happen once in my playthrough. The good thing here is that there were no major bugs that ruined my game or disrupted the NPC side quests that made me lose rewards or break my progress. I see the game's overall replayability is its weakest aspect. If you follow the main quest only, you are expecting around 25 to 30 hours of experience, while having 75 plus hours worth of playtime after getting 100% or when fully explored the map. I already have 81 hours under my belt, however, that playthrough involves item testing and guide making. The biggest drawback is the limited variety of builds that this game offers as mentioned. So when I explored almost 100% of the map and side activities, there was no incentive for me to play further. It is also such a bummer that I have made thousands of raw materials in my inventory with no feature to use them on, aside from crafting ammo and consumables. These materials were not farmed at all and just accumulated after picking anything that I could find in the field. I just wish that there was a hub to improve where I can dump these materials so that I can have extra hours on. Ghost of Yotei has a tag of a full AAA price of 70 USD, and at least from how I see it, it's worth the price despite the lack of the game's replayability because of its overall production. While some players could argue that they can have thousands of hours while replaying Elden Ring for example. While this is true, we cannot expect the same replayability in other games such as Yotei. If you found Ghost of Tsushima worth the price in the past, you will find the same value in Ghost of Yotei. Ghost of Yotei is a gorgeous and thrilling samurai adventure that delivers on atmosphere and combat, even if it stumbles in a few areas. The story is straightforward and not groundbreaking, but Atsu's journey and the cinematic presentations make it engaging. The landscapes are breathtaking and paired with a phenomenal soundtrack, which makes exploration worth your time. Combat is stylish and fluid and always satisfying, though enemy variety and limited build options holds it back from reaching its full potential. Despite its flaws, the game captures the spirit of feudal Japan beautifully, and Ghost of Yotei is recommended for anyone who loves samurai games.